like a raw wounding closes that down. But as they dance around the fire and experience the first taste of liberty, as they change their names, one 17-year-old Robert Markham becomes known as Maltapas. As they learn the language and assimilate, they are forgetting to heed the wise warning of the catering tortoise very much to their own peril. And we shall leave them in heedless jeopardy while we return very briefly to London to look at two highly influential shareholders of the Virginia Company. Number one, Sir Francis Bacon, Attorney General and Torturer-in-Chief of all England, of whom more later. Number two, Mr. William Shakespeare, investor in, shareholder of the Virginia Company, begging the question, what does he need the money for? Every play a hit. Tourists like Namantuck and Matt Chumps coming all the way from America to visit Anne Hathaway's cottage in the days when she still lived in it. You do the tour of Anne Hathaway's cottage and there she is, the neglected, deserted, abandoned wife, slumped in the corner, swigging from a bottle of sack or a glass of posset, going, oh, you all think he's so fucking great, isn't he? William fucking Shakespeare. That's his portrait there. That's him there. Although in real life, he doesn't have the word cunts tattooed on his forehead. I wrote that. When Shakespeare reads Strachey's report to the shareholders explaining why dividends from the wreck of the Sea Venture are going to be somewhat more modest than forecast, it inspires him to write the last play he writes alone, The Tempest, which has its premiere at the Guildhall, where the Chancellor now speaks on Hallowmas night, 1611, and by a queer twist of fate, and precisely as the catering tortoise predicted, exactly what happens in Bermuda happens in Virginia. Gates and the militia lead an attack on the Powhatan communes and they retake all the English runaways, get them back to Jamestown, where in Gates' own words, extreme and cruel tortures were used to terrify the rest for attempting the like. Some may point to be burned, broken on a wheel, bound to a tree and starved, hung, shot, and thus with enough terror and violence. Virginia is made a safe place for the accumulation of profit, a safe place for capitalism. And this is a pattern that continues right to the present day, incidentally. In the last 20 years, Chomsky has noticed a very strong statistical correlation over the last 20 years in Latin America. In any given year, in the last 20, whichever Latin American regime is the leading recipient of US military aid, same year, Amnesty International has the same country pegged as number one human rights abuser. And of course, what those two things are, most favourable investment climate for the accumulation of profit. All of which, incidentally, may explain a curious sight I saw in Mexico this time last year, and a little bit. I happened to be out there doing arduous research for my novel during Carnival Week, the Fiesta de Candelaria, and I'd read in the local papers while I was out there that the most popular carnival disguise that week throughout the whole of Mexico was Osama bin Laden. But nothing prepared me for Carnival Week itself, because you come out onto the streets and everywhere you look, hundreds of Osama bin Ladens. And bear in mind, many people have been spending weeks and months making incredibly detailed, convincing masks, and they've got the full Monty on, and then the procession comes along, and there's even more Osama bin Laden. When you think about it, the safest place for Osama bin Laden is in a Mexican carnival, just. Although, of course, the one giveaway, the one way you can tell the real Osama bin Laden from all the others is, of course, the real Osama bin Laden. He ain't heard any music since he got into fundamentalism in the early 80s. So kind of all the other Osamas, they're kind of winding up their waist carnival styly. But the real Osama, he'll be the one doing the iffy electro-pop. My favourite part of the show. I used to have... Sometimes I used to do it with music, but sometimes the young techies would just leave it on just for those last few seconds a bit more that you wanted. Just this, oh, so the old man wants the body pop. And they'd just leave me out there, and I just pick. There's nothing worse than like a reluctant body pop. Anyway, so He's losing his touch, though, Osama bin Laden. His heart isn't in it, I don't think. I mean, look, what's the last thing we heard from him? Audio cassette. Frankly disappointing audio cassette. Let's say we know for a fact that his one goal in life is to plant terror in the Western mind. He missed a golden opportunity with that audio cassette, didn't he? So what he should have done, he should have one of his mates standing in the middle distance. He says to him, all right, you stand over there about 12 foot away. Yeah, stand over there. Wait till I'm halfway through my speech, I'll give you the nod, and then you do it then, right? So he's got his mate all queued up. And Osama presses play and record. And he's like, as you bomb, so shall you be bombed. As you kill, so shall you be killed. Evening Standard! Evening Standard! Standard! What fucking hell is here, man? It's fucking hell. On to that's, by the way, when you're in Middle England, that's their dirty little secret fantasy. Their fantasy is that a suitcase bomb will go off in like London or Liverpool, Leeds or Birmingham, and it'll get rid of all us sexual deviants and political extremists. Middle England will take over again and Level 42 will be back at the top of the charts where they always belong. Ain't gonna happen. So in Jamestown in 1611, what you got is a political order made by and for transnational corporations, a perfect definition of corporate-led globalization. The first seeds of the political order that, like a virus, has spread and dominates the world today. A political order made by and for transnational corporations is planted Jamestown in 1611, and as night follows day, 11 years later, 1622, Sir Francis Bacon writes a highly influential pamphlet called An Advertisement Touching an Holy War, in which he says the only way to heal the growing breach is to engage in a popular quarrel abroad. Now, the growing breach is that the last 10, 20 years in England had seen huge amounts of civil unrest, uprisings, rebellions. There's the Midlands Revolt of 1607, the Southwark Butter Riot, the Beggars' Christmas Revolt, the Plasterers' Insurrection of 1614. They probably said they'd have it done by 1610. The only way to heal the growing breach is to engage in a popular quarrel abroad, and the target of Bacon's jihad is Caliban. He cannibalizes Colon. Columbus's word for the Caribbeans, cannibals, but he means Caliban. He just specifies who they are. He says the savage and monstrous Powhatan Indians, who just happen to live on that prime Virginian real estate, but right from the off. It's going to be a humanitarian intervention because not only, writes Bacon, is it lawful and meritorious to extirpate and debellate these savage monstrosities, but it is a divine honour. And that, though the deliverer came from one end of the world to the other. It's important to see the pattern, you know. The roots of, Chomsky says, the roots of British and US intervention are embedded in a set of geopolitical conceptions. He gets big laughs for this stuff. That are very remarkably constant over time and remained unchanged. They're now embedded in institutions, so it's like Terminator, this replicate, like a virus, it's going on and on. Rumsfeld, Poindexter, Cheney, Negroponte, all recycled Reaganites, all members of the Bush 1 administration. By their works, ye may know them. We've recently lost, I thought, you know, like, we look at Nicaragua in the 80s, we've recently lost Joe Strummer off The Clash, who kind of explained the whole Sandinista revolution in Nicaragua to us when we was 18-year-old punk rockers. For the very first time ever when they had a revolution in Nicaragua, there was no interference from America. Like Robbie Williams can explain Intifada to the kids today, I don't know. The people thought the leader and off he flew with no Washington bullets, what else could he do? Weren't to last, though, man. Weren't to last. The US, they began their onslaught against the Nicaraguans small. They started small. They started off by putting pressure on Mexico to stand up in the United Nations and say that Nicaragua now represents a threat to the security of Mexico. And famously, the Mexican foreign minister refused to do this with the words,
I don't want to be responsible for the earthquake when 100 million Mexicans fall to the ground laughing.